Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Hare Krishna. Any quick realizations from yesterday? Does anyone want to share one or two points before we start?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Prabhuji, we saw that the real love is not sentimental or emotional, but it is in surrender to Lord Krishna. And when we surrender, we have to like chant regularly, associate with devotees, read scriptures, offer bhoga, and perform devotional service. So, yeah, thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you, Mataji. I think that will be further expanded in today's class as well. Thank you so much, Mataji. So we'll start off with 15.28. So I will recite this verse and then do the explanation of this, and then we can carry on. Suta uvacha evam chintayato jishno krishnopada saroruham sauhardena dikaddena shanta siddh vimalamatihi. So translation by His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada. Will Ketan Prabhu, are you okay to read the translation, please, for this?
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Sutta Goswami said, thus being deeply absorbed in thinking of the instruction of the Lord, which were imparted in the great intimacy of friendship, and in thinking of his lotus feet, Arjuna's mind became pacified and free from all material contamination. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. So in this verse, it is clearly stated that the way to remain connected to Krishna is to follow his instructions as given in the Bhagavad Gita. Actually, we can draw an analogy between Bhagavad Gita and a law book or a rule book that lawyers are used in a court, right? So all the rules, all the instructions are given in the Bhagavad Gita, but it is further exemplified through case studies given in the Srimad Bhagavatam. All the beautiful pastimes, all the leelas, and beautiful examples of different exalted personalities actually help us realize those instructions given in the Bhagavad Gita through these learnings and conversations happening. So it's very important to stay connected to Krishna, as Mataji mentioned, not merely through sentiments, but also through his instructions, which are clearly stated in the Gita, which is what Arjuna is now doing in Krishna's physical absence. So he's following his instructions. And the way to get further connected to Krishna and develop an intimate bond with Krishna is by realizing him through his Nama, Rupa, Leela, and Gunas. So listening to his pastimes, understanding his divine qualities, chanting his holy name, worshipping him in a temple in his deity form, in his actual two-handed Rupa. So all these will take us closer to Krishna, and it is important we always remain close to Krishna. Kaushilanand Prabhu usually gives this analogy of our hair. So as long as our hair is connected to our head, it makes us beautiful. We want more hair, and it adds to our beauty. We all like more hair. So, but if the hair falls out, then we just discard it as rubbish. Then it means nothing. It's useless. So as long as a jiva is connected to Krishna, he always remains useful to the Lord. But if he's disconnected from Krishna and he wants to independently enjoy, then he is useless. He is of no purpose. So he can independently enjoy by himself, but he has no use to the Lord. So that's a very good analogy which Kaushalan Prabhu usually mentions. Okay, let's move on to text 29. Anuradha Mataji, would you like to recite and translate this, please? Thank you.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Dandavat pranam to everyone. Vasudevangri anudhyana pare brahmhitaram hasa bhaktya nirmathitat shesha Kashaya Dishano Arjuna. Arjuna's constant remembrance of the lotus feet of Lord Krishna rapidly increased his devotion, and as a result, all the trash in his thoughts subsided. Hare Krishna.
Yes, so it's Prabhupada has used a very, very strong word here, trash. I don't remember him using any this word in his previous writing, so it just emphasizes the point of how our material desires need to be treated like they are essentially trash or rubbish, which we need to constantly cleanse by performing devotional service and chanting of the holy name. And what does this trash result in? This trash results in lots of anxiety. More material desires means anxiety to acquire possessions, anxiety to maintain our bodily relationships, our false ego coming into the picture. We want to acquire more properties, more money, a better salary, a better designation, and it goes all the way, not just from us, right up to the top leadership, not just of our organizations, but also of the nations, right? So nobody is happy in their current position. Even a minister will not be happy in his current position. He wants to become a senior minister. He then eventually want to become prime minister. It's always a conflict between people in different parties trying to outdo each other in the competition to get the highest designation. So even amongst it happens, it's said it happens even amongst the demigods. So it's not restricted only to this world. It also happens in other heavenly planets as well. So at least in our material world, we can understand it in the form of the consumerism, the different examples I gave of people wanting to have more and more possessions. And that's why, along with material education, the learning point is we need to have spiritual education, because only having academic education and academic knowledge, as you can see through various examples of different industrialists, politicians, entrepreneurs, results only in anxiety and more stress and more competition to acquire more things and become more important than someone else. But spiritual knowledge removes all your anxieties, removes all our fears, and gives us bliss. So it's very important for material education and spiritual education to go hand in hand, at least from our I don't know how many of us had this privilege when we were children. At least I didn't have that, but the learning point is, at least for our children, we need to try and make sure we give them some spiritual education along with the material education. Okay, verse 30. Can I request Anirvinna Prabhu to please recite?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dhanvat Pranam. Hare Krishna devotees, Dhanvat Pranam. Thank you, Prabhuji. Prabhupada ki jai. Verse 30. Geetam Bhagavata Jnanam Yattat Sangrama Murdhani Kala Karma Tamoruddham Punaradhyagamat Prabhu. Translation. Because of the Lord's pastimes and activities, and because of his absence, it appeared that Arjuna forgot the instructions left by the personality of Godhead. But factually, this was not the case, and again he became lord of his senses. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you, Mataji. So the instructions, like I said, instructions given by the Lord to Arjuna were not just material instructions. Because of common people, if they just look at the Mahabharata, they will say, oh, Krishna is advising Arjuna to fight this battle, conquer the kingdom, and then kill his relatives. If somebody is not aware of the background and what is Krishna's personality and they're just reading Mahabharata, that's what they will think. And Arjuna follows his instructions, and then Krishna leaves this planet, and then Arjuna forgets about the instructions and carries on with life as usual. But it's very important that the relationship between Krishna and Arjuna was not just a bodily relationship, it was a spiritual connection. It was a transcendental relationship, transcending all the three modes of material nature. So the instructions also given to Arjuna was transcendental instructions, which was to allow Krishna's purpose in life to be fulfilled, purpose in the material world to be fulfilled. And what was that purpose? The purpose was to re-establish dharma by annihilating the miscreants. So once that was achieved, and that could only be achieved because Arjun let go of his own wishes. He didn't want to fight the battle. He didn't want to kill his relatives. He had lots of hesitation, lots of anxieties in his mind. But once he had full faith in Krishna, he put in all his efforts in fulfilling the Lord's mission. So the learning point is highlighted in the last sentence of this purport, which I shall briefly read. One should therefore adjust the activities of life in pace with the mission of the Lord. And by doing this, one is sure to return back home, back to Godhead. This is the highest perfection of life. So what does this mean? We need to, as in the material world, given all the different attractions, all our different material duties we have, we've got to raise our kids, we've got to progress in our careers, we've got to make sure we've got enough money to look after ourselves, our parents, whoever else. We've got to set aside something for retirement. Also, all the other entertainment activities, holidays, and all that. So, if you ask an ordinary materialistic person, everybody says the same thing. Oh, we have no time. We are absolutely stressed. If you call them for a spiritual gathering, that's their usual response. But here it is clearly stated that we need to adjust the activities of life, which means we need to purposefully and deliberately make time for spiritual activities and devotional service. Otherwise, we are not aligning our own activities and our own desires and purposes in line with what the Lord is actually wanting us to do. And it's clearly stated in different sections of the Bhagavad Gita as well as Srimad Bhagavatam that the purpose of human life is to go back to Godhead. So if we are doing nothing in that regard, then obviously we are not aligning our activities in line with the mission of the Lord. And obviously, if that doesn't happen, He's not going to be pleased with us. So if somebody doesn't obey you, obviously you're not going to be pleased with them. So it's as simple as that. Okay, verse 31. Can I request Puja Mataji to, Puja Vitlani Mataji to?
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Dandavat Pranam. Text 31. Vishoko Brahma Sampatya Sanchinnam De Tasamshayah Lina Prakriti Naigunya Dalinda Tvada Sambhavah. Because of his possessing spiritual assets, the doubts of duality were completely cut off. Thus, he was freed from the three modes of material nature and placed in transcendence. There was no longer any chance of his becoming entangled in birth and death, and for he was freed from material form. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Mataji. So it's talking about Arjuna's spiritual assets here. Very, very important phrase that Prabhupada has used, which is spiritual assets. When we talk of examples of spiritual assets, especially in the case of Arjuna, it was his gratitude towards the Lord for being with him always through thick and thin. And he's expressed his gratitude multiple times in the previous verses of this chapter, in all the different pastimes. So that is his gratitude towards the Lord, his constant remembrance of the Lord's pastimes, his constant remembrance of the Lord's instructions to him, and always taking the Lord's name. Those are his spiritual assets. And the same thing can also obviously apply to us. We obviously need to be grateful to the Lord for everything He has done for us. And the Lord can't just be realized. The greatness of the Lord does not always need to be realized when we go back to Godhead and when we meet Him and we participate in His Leelas. Obviously, that is the ultimate perfection. That is our ultimate goal. But the greatness of the Lord can also be realized by hearing about Him, Shravanam, chanting his names, remembering his pastimes, following his instructions. And obviously, if for a neophyte devotee, some of us are not able to remember that. Some of us, sometimes, at least in my case, I do certain things mechanically. And then even for that, Krishna has given a verse, beautiful verse in 7.8. If I paraphrase that, it says, think of me as the taste of water, the light of the sun and the moon, the heat of fire, the fragrance of earth, the ability of man. He's given so many different examples. So even if you look at the sun outside, we should be able to realize that it is one of Krishna's potencies. If we feel some heat from the fire, which we prepare bhoga, then that means that, again, that is one of Krishna's potencies. When we drink water, the taste of water is Krishna's potency. So we can realize that practically in our day-to-day life, apart from obviously all the devotional service and other activities which are prescribed for us. So in that way, we can continue to establish our connection with the Lord and actually feel his presence, right? Krishna manifests himself only once on the day of Brahma in this universe, but we can always feel his presence in his unmanifested state in so many different examples that he has left behind for us. So that's obviously very practical ways for us to constantly remember Krishna and feel his presence. Okay, we'll move on to verse 32. Bimal Prabhu, would you like to try?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Thank you.
Verse 32. Nishamya bhagvana margam samstham yadakulasya cha swapathaya matim chakre nibhitatma yudhishthira. Translation. Upon hearing of Lord Krishna's returning to his abode, and upon understanding the end of the Yadu dynasty's earthly manifestation, Maharaj Yudhishthira decided to go back home, back to Godhead. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhu. So this verse talks about Yudhishthira Maharaj hearing about Krishna's returning to his abode, and then also understanding about the end of the Yadu dynasty. And I can actually think of an example, right? So if you think of, let's say, Prime Minister Narendra Modi going from India to the US, he'll take along a fairly good delegation. He'll take along a few ministers, bureaucrats. There might be some security people along with him, some few people from the media relations team, and all these people he will take along with him. So there he will do what he needs to do. He will talk to different delegates. He will negotiate some agreements. He might participate in some programs by Indians in the US. And then once all that's over, obviously he also has a responsibility of bringing all of them back to India, and then obviously performing other activities, executing other projects in India. So that can be compared to this particular pastime here, where Krishna, along with this Yadu dynasty, so Krishna doesn't go by himself. He makes sure that the Yadu dynasty also returns with him. So that could be an example that we could relate back to the material world. And another example Prabhupada is giving is that of the sun. So imagine the sun setting in Melbourne. Obviously, when the sun sets, the sun does not get finished or destroyed, or that's not the end of the life for the sun. So the sun sets in Melbourne, but it rises in another part of the world in a different region, which means that Krishna is eternal, just like all of us are eternal souls. Krishna, who is our eternal Father, obviously he's eternal. So he goes back into a different destination to perform his leelas, and he takes along all his close associates who are in the form of yadus in this world. So he makes sure that all of them are also going along with him. And obviously, Krishna has devised certain plans to take the yadus along. There's a different pastime there in terms of what happened. I think it'll come in a future verse. But here it is clearly stated that Krishna is eternal. He is absolute. His body is not material. His body is eternal. And his activities are also divine in nature. Janma karma cha me divyam evam yo vedi tattvataha tyaktva deham punarjanma naiti mam aiti so Arjuna. So whoever understands the divine nature of Krishna's birth, appearance, and activities, he can easily reach Godhead, because he is the one who is a true devotee, not somebody who performs lots of austerities, mental speculation, Ashtanga yoga, a lot of knowledge of the scriptures, but he does not really believe in Krishna or understand him as the supreme personality of Godhead. But one who understands Krishna's true divine eternal nature, he can easily go back to Godhead, and which is where Yudhishthira is also a realized soul. And once he knows that Krishna has gone back, he finds no purpose in remaining there. He has already completed, I think, close to 35 years ruling the empire. So he now wants to hand over the reins to his successor and go back to Godhead along with Krishna and the Yadu. So he wants to follow the process. So there is we call that a succession planning in the corporate world. So he'll do that eventually. He won't go back immediately. He will retire after handing over the reins to Parikshit. Okay, so that was verse 32. We can probably do a couple more given the time we've got. Who can read? Sneha Mataji, would you like to read verse 33, please?
Prabhuji. Hare Krishna. Text 33. Pritapi anusrutya dhanunjayoditam nasham yadunam bhagavat tadgatim chatam ekanta bhaktya bhagavati adokshaje nivesitatmo pararama samsrite. Translation. Kunti, after overhearing Arjuna's telling of the end of the Yadu dynasty and disappearance of Lord Krishna, engaged in the devotional service of the transcendental personality of Godhead, full attention, and thus gained release from the course of material existence.
Thank you, Mataji. In this purport, Prabhupada has given a very important phrase here, so I'll just read it again. He's talking about Kunti's devotional service. He says that she fully engaged herself in the transcendental devotional service of the Lord. And then, very importantly, he clearly states, which guarantees one a passport for going back to Godhead after quitting this present material body. So Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada, who is our Param Guru, he has clearly stated that performing devotional service is a guaranteed passport for going back to Godhead after quitting this material body. So that's a very, very important word. It gives us all a lot of hope, a lot of optimism that if we continue to perform devotional service, then we are guaranteed a passport to go back to Godhead. So I like this verse. Secondly, Prabhupada also states here that the abode of the Lord is not a myth just because the boundaries of material science stretch only up to certain planets in our solar system or even up to our Milky Way galaxy. It's not that these spiritual planets do not exist. Just because they can't be reached by our spaceships or rockets, we can't say that they don't exist. They definitely exist. And by performing devotional service, we guarantee, again in the last line he's saying, that guarantees a passport for going back to Godhead. and Kunti Maharani adopted it. So very, very positive and hope-giving verse for all of us. And we can definitely, like we mentioned, all the modes of devotional service that I mentioned previously, if we follow all of that, we can all definitely go back to Godhead and enjoy in the eternal bliss with Lord Krishna himself, which is what Yudhishthira Maharaj did, eventually does, but Kunti Maharani does it right away. So she goes back. Let's move on to verse 34. We can probably do 34 and 35 together. Who can read? Nirvinna Prabhu, can you read 34 and 35?
Prabhu,
Hare
Shiva
Krishna.
Prabhu raised his hand.
Oh, sorry. Shiva Prabhu raised his hand.
Yes, sorry,
Yes,
Prabhuji.
please read.
Can I try
Please read
34?
34 and 35.
No, 34 I'll do, Prabhuji, and then you can give 35 to someone else. Hare Krishna. Yeya harada bhuvo bharam tam tanu vijaha vaja kanta kam kantake neva doyam chapi situ samam. Translation. The Supreme Unborn, Lord Krishna, caused the members of the Yadu dynasty to relinquish their bodies, and thus he relieved the burden of the world. This action was like picking out a thorn with a thorn, though both are the same to the controller. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhu. Nirvinna Prabhu, would you like to read?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Shri Prabhupada ki jai. Verse 35. Yatha matsyadi rupani dhatte jahyad yatha nataha bhubharah kshapito yena jahutacha kalevaram.
Translation: The Supreme Lord relinquished the body which he manifested to diminish the burden of the earth. Just like a magician, he relinquishes one body to accept different ones, like the fish incarnation and others. Thank you, Babuji.
Thank you, Shiva Prabhu, and thank you, Nirvinna Prabhu and Mataji. So, two important things here. The verse 34, which Shiva Prabhu read, talks about the disappearance of the Yadu dynasty. So Krishna devises a very, very clever plan. And that whole pastime is there in Canto 10 of the Srimad Bhagavatam. But just very briefly, what he does is he makes an arrangement so that his son Samba plays a prank on one of the rishis. He gets cursed. And out of that curse, the effect of the curse, ultimate effect of the curse is such that all of them get intoxicated. They fight with each other. There's a lot of quarreling happening, and then they end up killing each other. So Prabhupada has used a very nice analogy, or rather it's an analogy used by Arjuna. He's saying that the action is like picking out a thorn with a thorn, though both are the same to the controller. So he uses the Yadus themselves to annihilate each other, and ultimately all of them go back to Godhead. It doesn't require an external agency to come and kill them like an asura or a demon. He does that all very, very intimately as a pastime amongst his own associates. So see how cleverly he arranges this. And the next verse talks about the Lord relinquishing his own body, just like a magician. So we can talk a lot about this, but I'll try and be brief in the interest of time. So Krishna is described as a magician, Yogeshwara, the Param mystic. So there's also a nice verse from Bhagavad Gita. Yatra Yogeshwara Krishna, Yatra Partho Dhanurdaraha, Tatra She Vijayo Bhuti, Dhruvaniti Matir Mamaha. So Krishna is known as the master magician, the personality, the supreme personality, who has annihilated different demons, performed so many wonderful pastimes like holding the Govardhana hill. He has protected so many devotees at their time of need. He has protected Draupadi. He has helped Subhadra marry Arjuna. So many pastimes are there, both in Mahabharata and in Krishna stories about everything that he has done, right? So, and the way he devised a plan to disappear from this earth, obviously because he was performing this Leela, and he had, just because he had come in human form, he performs this Leela also of disappearance, wherein a hunter uh, pierces him with an arrow to his foot. The arrow strikes his foot, and that leads to Krishna's disappearance, right? So, but materialists or people who don't believe in Krishna as the supreme personality of Godhead say that he had a material body. It's just that he had some special powers, and then once those powers diminished, he had to go back to where he came from after the arrow struck his foot. But can you imagine a person who has done so much, planned this entire spiritual mission, as we all call it, coming into this material world, planning all these annihilations of demons, completely vanquishing so many asuras, establishing dharma, changing the entire ruler of one of the most powerful kingdoms of Hastinapur. So from Dhritarashtra and Duryodhana, it went to Pandavas, who ruled in all their glory. Someone who has defined basically how we live today by all his actions 5,000 years ago. How can he be have a material body, or how can he be just an ordinary material soul just because he has performed this pastime of an arrow striking his foot and then disappearing from this material world? So there's actually a line that Prabhupada has drawn from one of the scriptures, which says that if somebody believes that Krishna has a material body and Krishna is a normal jiva, and if you see such a person, he's saying such a person is so abominable. He's such an, if you use the word infidel, somebody who has no religious principles. So if somebody was to see such a person, the purport is written that we should uh, or anyone should go with his clothes and jump into a river and cleanse himself. He's saying it is so critical, we need to clean ourselves. So what is the key learning point, practical application for us in our day-to-day life? Is we need to be very, very careful what sort of books we are reading, what sort of philosophies we are listening to. So much things happening on YouTube, social media about different alternate philosophies. So many gurus are coming up without any discipline, succession, without any parampara, practicing their own kinds of worship and own philosophy. So we need to be very, very mindful of this and guard ourselves of any of these contamination that can happen to our spiritual life, because there are so many examples of people getting contaminated by reading alternate literature and other kinds of philosophies, and then following into a path which is totally Krishna has not prescribed. So that's where we need to be. We don't have to literally jump into a river, but we just need to make sure we have a close association with devotees and we stay away from literature or media which is not in line with the teachings of Bhagavad Gita as it is. So I'll end on that note in the interest of time. But if you have anything to add, dear devotees, please feel free to do so. If I made any mistakes, please excuse me.
Very quickly, Prabhuji, this pastime is very, very interesting. The start of the decline of the destruction of the Yadu dynasty. I heard a little bit of it, Prabhuji, if someone can elaborate on it. Very, very interesting that at the start of the Yadu dynasty, like a group of boys, they disguised one of the boys as a girl, as a pregnant woman. And then they went to some rishi and asked the rishi, will this girl or will this Mataji have a boy or a girl as a child? And the rishis got they, because the rishis can see immediately, they can recognize, and then they curse. Is that, can somebody tell this in a better way, in a full, please? Because this is amazing. I when I heard, wow.
So what they did was they this was Samba, who was Krishna's son. So what he did was he hid a mace, like a gada, in his clothes, under his clothes, and pretended to be pregnant, and went to the rishi and asked whether this would yield a son or a daughter. The rishi, obviously due to his mystic powers, he recognized that was actually not a false thing he was doing. So what he told him was, this is neither a boy nor a girl, and he cursed him that you, along with all of your friends and the entire Yadu dynasty, will be annihilated completely. And he said, this thing that you're hidden in your stomach is going to be the root cause of your destruction. So he then went to King Ugrasen, Krishna's grandfather, and complained that this is what happened. I'm very sorry. How do we deal with this? So Ugrasen Maharaj asked them to make it into a fine pulp, that fine powder, and that mace. So they crushed it and made it into a fine powder, and then they threw it into the sea, in Dwarka. But what then happened was, from that fine powder, there were different reeds that came up, which were actually like as sharp as swords. They were not just normal plants; they were actually sharp swords that came out of the water. So again, after a few months, these guys were again intoxicated. They were partying, having fun, fully intoxicated, and then they started quarreling amongst themselves. And what happened was, they didn't have any weapons with them, but they were getting so furious against each other that they saw those reeds that had come up in the form of sharp swords. So they picked those up and started fighting with each other, and then eventually used those as swords and ended up killing each other. So that is this Leela in short, Prabhu.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Amazing. Hare Krishna. Yeah, because of time, Prabhuji has instructed us to limit the time. So we'll have to end quickly, unless somebody has got very quick comments or quick question. Okay. Hare Krishna. We'll end it here for today.
Hare Krishna.
And will we end a bit of announcement? Krishna Prabhu, you want to make that announcement for Sunday, please?
Yes, I think Puja Mataji had a question.
Oh, Puja Mata. Okay.
Sorry, Prabhu. Sorry for interrupting. Just one question. Why is Sutta Goswami referring them as burden? Like, it just isn't, like, they are from Yadu dynasty, so why are they referred as burdens on earth? Burden of the earth.
Okay.
Just
Sure, Mataji will address, Krishna Prabhu will address, but after the announcement, because we want to make that announcement for Sunday's class before some of us will start leaving. Krishna Prabhu?
Yes, so on Sunday, Kaushalanand Prabhu has organized the Naimisharanya. So that's from 10 to 4, somewhere near the temple, either at his place or at an alternate place. The details will come out soon. So it'll all be published in the WhatsApp chat. But please, if you're coming, and we would like everyone to come, so this is on behalf of Kaushalanand Prabhu, as many as you can, even if it's for 2 hours or whatever, right? If you can't stay for the entire duration, that's fine. But try to come in at least for a couple of hours to relish the Srimad Bhagavatam from Kaushalanand Prabhu. And please RSVP, so as soon as you can, on the chat with how many adults and how many kids are coming. Okay, thank you.
Mataji, you can address Mataji's question as well, Prabhuji, and then we'll close.
Yes, so again, I'm not 100% sure, but my understanding is that they've been described as a burden, because going back to my previous statement about as long as we stay connected to Krishna, we are useful to him, we are fulfilling his purpose. The mission was accomplished in this material world, so now he wanted to take them elsewhere. So if they remained here, they would not have any mission. So, and somebody without a clear mission starts to become a burden eventually. So that's why he decided to take all of them back to where he wanted to go next.
Hare Krishna, Mataji.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mataji. Thank you, dear devotees.
Hare
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna,
Have a lovely day.
Beautiful.